Good answer. All right. Public comment. I have no cards in front of me. Anything from remote or that should be
No speaker cards.
okay. We'll move on. Item 6, agenda management. Straight through.
No, straight through.
Straight through. Item 7, consent calendar. Matters listed under routine. Do I have a motion to do the entire consent calendar at once, or do you want to pull anything? Anybody?
Also move.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. I hear none opposed. 5-0. All right, board business. Wow, it seems loud tonight. Public hearing, receive presentation, and public comments on public draft 2025 urban water management plan and water shortage contingency plan.
Good evening, President Halkett, members of the board. I'm Steve Delight, the Engineering Services Director. Tonight, I would like to introduce Irene Soroso, a Senior Engineer in the CIP and Planning Group. Irene's going to provide a presentation on the 2025 Urban Water Management Plan and Water Shortage Contingency Plan. Irene?
Thank you. As a matter of order, should I open the hearing now or wait till presentation is done?
Now.
Public hearing is now open. I think I have to do this, make it legal. There you go. All right, Irene, go.
Good evening, President Halkett, members of the board. My name is Irene Soroso. I'm a senior engineer in the CIP and Planning divisions, and tonight I'm going to present the District 2025 Urban Water Management Plan and Water Shortage Contingency Plan. I will go over the outline for tonight's presentations. We'll begin with an overview of the Urban Water Management Plan and Water Shortage Contingency Plan. And from there, we'll move to the key sections of the Urban Water Management Plan, which is going through the how water use has changed in our surface area and what to expect in the future. Next, well, before that, after that, we'll go over the supply portfolio and projections, and followed by the supply reliability assessment. And then we'll cover the water shortage contingency plan, which outlines how the district prepares for and responds to any water shortages, including drought stages and corresponding actions. And finally, we'll wrap up with the next steps. So here's actually acronyms that will be used that you'll hear throughout the presentations, and it is including in the presentations package. So the Urban Water Management Plan is required under California Urban Water Management Planning Act. This document, this is a water supply planning document that evaluates the reliability of the district water supply to meet the projected demand over the next 20 years, from 2025 to 2045, with the optional of the year 2050, which is we included in the planning planning document. And the Urban Water Management Plan is required to be updated every 5 years. Our last update was completed and adopted by the board in 2021. Here's the key purpose of the Urban Water Management Plan. First, it serves as our primary tool for communicating the district long-term planning strategy to the public and also the governing body. It provides a framework to address any water shortages through the Water Shortage Contingency Plan. And then it is a prerequisite to receive the state funding, including the grant. Now we transition to the Water Shortage Contingency Plan. It is a separate plan document that adopted alongside with the Urban Water Management Plan. This address shortages that can arise from drought or any supply interruptions caused by the water quality or any emergency events. It worked in coordinations with the district code. This plan also being designed to be a dynamic and adaptive document. So as the condition change, whether due to climate or supply availability, the plan can be updated to ensure that we remain prepared and responsive. The urban water management plan require extensive public notifications to provide an opportunity for the public involvement in the developing of the plan. We began this process in December with the coordinations with Zone 7 on the district demand data. And then in February, we notified the public and all related agencies that we preparing the urban water management plan and water shortage contingency plan. In mid-May, we issue a formal notice for for tonight's public hearing, and today is we are holding the public hearing, and we plan to bring the final documents for the board for adoptions at the next meeting on June 16. And following the adoptions, we will submit the final documents to DWR by July 1st. That is required by the regulations. So in the next few slides, I will go over the district demands trends and projections. On this slide, we are looking at the district demand over the last 20 years along with our population growth. The blue bar here represents the potable demand, the white bar represents the recycled water demand, and the orange line represents our population growth. We had, starting from the populations, the orange lines, we had a very steady growth from 2000 to 2020 with completions of major developments in our service area. And as we approach the build out, which is showing here, like you're seeing here, the growth slowed down in the last few years. And then on the demand side, we see the similar pattern. So we see similar pattern where we looking at growth since 2005. And then we, throughout that 20 years planning horizons, we experienced 3 droughts and 3 major droughts with a cutback requirement. So in here, we can look at it that we see the demand reductions on the first drought, 2008, but then we see the rebounds after the drought, and then we see another drought that our water demand reduced significantly, and we see the rebound. And the last drought, we do also see reductions. However, the rebound in the last drought is slow compared to the last 2. So each time when the restrictions are lifted, we do start demand rebounds, which is a response from our customer due to the drought messaging and also the changing conditions. So the key takeaway from this slide is basically showing that despite our populations that nearly double over this period, you can see from 2008 here, where our population is almost double, our demand is actually very consistent now, like on 2005, it's very similar to 2008, 2009. So this trend actually highlights that the demand hardenings and also reflects the success of the conservation programs and other long-term efficiency practices like, the high efficiency fixtures or appliances, and the rebates program utilizing the smart irrigation system. And with these permanent changes, it will be harder to cut back during the drought. Another way to look at our water use, also looking at customer water use by focusing on how much water use each person use per day, showing this graph. So the blue line here is showing the consumptions per persons per day. And the gray line here is showing some populations. So it's very similar pattern here compared to the previous slide. The overall trends show our customers are more efficient a significant reductions in water use happening in 2005, 2006 when the DOA recycle program started. That's when we see the significant drop on the per capita use. And then again, when we converted the west side system for recycled water for the large parcels, parks, and school.
Just a quick question, sorry, on
Sure.
this. Is this all water use? So like recycle water and potable water? Is that what this is showing per gallon?
No, this is actually potable water only,
Okay.
and it is a system-wide. System-wide meaning like all our throughout our system. Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. I guess one comment on this is that we're getting to a point where we're, everyone's conserving pretty significantly here. So, how are we going to sort of address this if there's another 15% cutback? Because it seems like when you look at, for example, 2022, and where they dropped down to 92, and now it's like people are 89, and this is 2024. In 2024, I mean, if you take another 15% cutback, that's going to be somewhere in the magnitude of 75 per capita. So that's, I mean, we're getting, to a point where it's really getting tight there. So, I mean, especially when we're already doing a good job with conserving. And so I'm just curious, like, how the climate's going to shift on that. Will there still be, if we do get in a drought situation, will it get down to 15%? Will they be, hey, will they look at it and say, look at it based on your per capita use, and then tie that in, say maybe it's only 5% because your per capita use is already so low to begin with. So if you're already low to begin with and you got to go super, even lower, that doesn't make sense. I'm hoping, like, from a perspective of, on a policy level, that they would hopefully think through that. That's all, just a comment.
I agree. I think there's
I'm not
there's
asking for any feedback. I'm
there's
just a
I would say there's two things also to add to that. One is that we're not done trying to lower per capita water use. The long-term conservation framework requires us to go even lower, and that was a prior presentation that the board heard. But that is one area where we're working at kind of the state level, that when emergency drought regulations go in, that they do recognize the demand hardening and the conservation that's already built in.
Good, thank you.
Otherwise, no good deed goes unpunished in Waterland.
Yeah, that's what I was, I guess, saying indirectly.
You know me, I'm always direct.
Is there any other?
No, thank you for it.
comments?
It's very nice. Yeah, thank you.
So just want to highlight here is that DSRSD investments in the conservation and recycled water reduce this per capita water use, and it's reduced by more than 50% since 2005. So it is a good job on DSRSD works and efforts. This slide showed the district projected water demand and populations. And over the next 20 years, we are projected about 27% increase in demand compared to the 2025 levels. And we also projected about 15% populations growth to 2050. In this demand projections, we have included all future projects within our service area, and also the regional housing needs allocations, which is known by RENA. And then for conservatism, we did assume a moratorium on new recycled water connections, just to be conservative in our demand projections. I would like to also emphasize that the district has been proactive working with DOA and other stakeholders in order to increase the recycled water supply. The next few slides, I will cover the supply sections of the urban water management plan. Here's showing our supply source. District supply comes majority from purchased water from Zone 7, and 20% our source is recycled water for outdoor landscape irrigations, with the remaining from the groundwater. just looking at the Zone 7 supply source, majority of the Zone 7 supply is actually imported from state water projects with only 10% from the local runoff. This is under average condition, so it can be varies from year to year. Zone 7 balances their supplies through storage and transfer to meet the retailer demand, including DSRSD. There's three major projects identified in Zone 7 supply portfolio listed here. Site Reservoir, which is a storage facility to be online on 2034. The Chain of Lakes is a storage and conveyance project anticipated to be online on 2035. And the Delta, which is a conveyance project, assumed to be online on 2045. Just want to highlight here, the site reservoir and chain of lakes are actually used as the supply source calculations in Zone 7 because of the timeline on the Delta project is so further out, so it was not including in their supply. Zone 7 also include two projects as exploratory planning projects, including the potable reuse and desalination. So with those informations on the supply portfolio, now this is showing our supply projections. Zone 7 developed a 20-year supply projections based on the anticipated demand from all the retailers, including the SRSD. And this basically showing that under normal year, we will be able to meet our projected demands. As mentioned previously, this is also with the assumptions that recycled water moratorium. Therefore, we do not anticipate an increase in recycled water supply. The next major element of this planning document is our assessments of supply reliability. The state regulations require us to evaluate how our water supply performs under stress using three specific scenarios: normal year conditions, a single dry year, and a multi-year drought, consecutive 5 years drought year. And this analysis will help us understand how resilient our supply. So here is the summary of the assessment. So like I mentioned, under normal year, we will be able to meet our demand. There is no shortfall. Under a single year, this is projected also no shortfall. However, under the multi-year drought, at the fifth year, we'll start seeing a shortfall on the 2045 and 2050. We're looking at 40% to 20% shortfall, and this is actually from a shortfall from Zone 7 water deliveries. Before I move on, is there any questions that you want me to address?
So the 5-year drought, if it started tomorrow, I'm assuming those curtailments on 45 and 50 are going to move to the left.
Oh, yeah, it's 5 years consecutive though. So year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, and then on the year 5, it will be shortfall.
So it's 2026 right now. So
yeah, if we start a drought in 2026, it will not until the 5th year that we will see the shortfall.
So we'll see it in 2031. Okay, so these numbers move to the left if we start the drought. Got it.
In the following slide, I will present the highlights on the DSRSD 2025 Water Shortage Contingency Plan. Before we start, I would like to mention that there are no major changes in these updated versions. The key elements in this planning documents are consistent with the adopted Water Shortage Contingency Plan in 2021. District continues to use the 6 shortage levels consistent with the state standard. from level 1 to 6 with a shortage ranging from 10% to more than 50%. And then under the district code, declarations, water use regulation, and enforcement measures are determined and approved by the board. For the response actions for managing each stages outlined in Chapter 8 in the Urban Water Management Plan, also as a separate planning document in the appendix of the plan. These actions fall into two categories, demand reduction actions and water supply augmentation actions. Under the demand reduction actions, it can be implemented when the board formally declares a drought and authorize actions. And for supply augmentation actions, it can be activated during the non-drought emergency event. And in those situations, DSRSD may access additional water through the assisting interties with the neighboring agency like Pleasanton, Livermore, and East Bay Mud, depending on the availability from the supplying agency. So since 2022, DSRC had been required to prepare the annual water shortage assessment. Our wholesaler, Zone 7, is also required to complete this assessment each year. The process starts in April. Zone 7 completes their annual sustainability report that shows whether there is expected water supply shortages. And then from there, late April or May, DSRSD will prepare our annual supply and demand assessment. If the assessments show a shortage, DSRSD prepares resolutions with recommended water shortage stages and also action, and will coordinate with the Tri-Valley Water Agencies and also the cities that we serve for local emergency proclamations. And then in May, we'll bring to the board for declaring the water shortage conditions and authorize response actions, and follow with a response, implement the response actions that are approved by the board. And then July 1st, we are required to submit that assessment to DWR, whether we have a shortfall or if we don't have any shortage. We still have to reporting it. Here is the example actions during the shortage that DSRSD can implement based on the stage. Just for simplicity, we kind of like group them here based on the category from outreach, drought rates, landscape irrigations, or constructions water use or maintenance water use. And most of them will start it from stage 1. And then from our the previous drought, the last drought, what we've seen the most impactful to reduce our demand is through the landscape irrigations. So next steps, staff recommends we're holding the public hearing today. We have received a comment letter from Zone 7, which included a suggested text revisions to some of our supply sections. And we will incorporate that comments into the final Urban Water Management Plan and Water Shortage Contingency Plan. And then in the next board meeting, staff will bring the final document to the board for adoptions. And following the adoptions, we'll submit the documents to DWR and then make the document available for the city, the state library, and also on our website. Concludes my presentations, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much. All right, any speaker cards or anybody public comment for this item?
I've received no comments.
Seeing none, I'm now going to close the public hearing. Bang magic. magic hammer, and we're going to open this up for board discussion. Any board discussion? I'll start to my right.
Well, I think first of all, thank you for the report. Very well done and very comprehensive. But it very plainly points out our position as a retailer that we are such a limited source of water for us that the actions that you've outlined are literally, that's about all we can do, and we will have to do that. And I think the last drought that we experienced with cutbacks and increased rates, etc. I think we did a real good job of impressing upon our customer base that conservation is the key thing. But I think the more glaring issue is the question of supply. With 75% coming from Zone 7, and they're getting it from the state water project. To me, it just points out the need that the state needs to increase our reservoir capacity, for sure. But I don't know. I look at this and I'm thinking, what else could we do? And I'm at a loss to come up with any more ideas than this. I think it's very well presented.
Excellent, thank you.
I definitely echo Director Duarte's comments, and to your point about additional storage with sites reservoir, chain of lakes on the near horizon. Obviously, we need to start really looking and hearing on the updates on the chain of lakes. Sites reservoir, we know that they're going towards their entitlement process by I think September of this year. So that's all great progress, and Delta Conveyance, is at risk, I guess, tonight, pending on what the direction of our future leadership at the state level is. But, I think really the fact of the matter of your presentation is, one, it was really well done, is demand hardening and reductions. The community's done what they needed to do. The water board here, we did what we need to do. What I don't want to see happen is what happened to the city for RENA. We were silent. We didn't take the necessary actions we had, and we got punished for doing good deeds. This is looking like it's going to be repeating itself, right? We know the direction is down at 64 per capita, or somewhere in that range. That's going to be hard to achieve. So I don't look forward to that day when we have that drought and we have to communicate something that's not achievable, and we have to deal with the circumstances for doing a good job. So I think that's going to be our toughest piece, and I think that's where we really need to spend our efforts. We need to not only work with our regional boards, our regional collaboration entities, and within the Tri-Valley, but I think we need to start looking at making the necessary investments for lobbying. Thank you.
June?
Well, yes, this is an excellent report, and I can't find anything to add to it. Like Director Duarte said, short of throwing beads in the air at the clouds, I don't know what we can do. I am worried about a drought this year. We already know that the snowpack melted far too early to be saved. But I'm blown away with how well our residents participated in the conservation. I continue to be, since they started to do it, very proud of our residents for what they did. But again, obviously we've now, with the progress at Zone 7, with looking at all these alternatives, that's very satisfying because, as you may know, remember how long you've been here, but it's been quite a battle to get Zone 7 to look at additional supply. That continues to be our problem. And all the things that are supposed to happen are years in the future and are going to cost bazillions of dollars. And it doesn't look good. So anyway, don't want to look for a drought, but I think we're headed that way. I just read again that we're going to have a big El Nino, which means the weather's going to be very strange. It's already been strange. I mean, who has a heat wave and the next day it's 62? But I don't have any underlying questions on the report. I think it's an excellent report. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, Irene, first of all, great job. Nice presentation. Like all the rest of the board has complimented you on. I mean, it's very well done. And it's quite impressive, again, going back to my earlier comments, just seeing the utilization dropping, over 50%. And so that's quite impressive to see that. The only thing I would just say is, when we think about other areas of supply, and I know this is not always the most popular thing to say, but I think it's something we should look at. There was something that was mentioned there on one of the slides about desalination. But one of the things I think, from our perspective, what we could look at is, again, we've probably talked about this before, is the whole toilet to tap. And looking at that as another potential resource if, when we get down to there. So I think we need to start seriously looking into that and start, kind of just looking what that would look like and how we can go in that direction if need be.
So thank you. Well done. I don't have much more to add except we call it purified water, not toilet to tap.
Those are no words.
Yeah. And yes, that's on the table. Given, the one graph, given the difference between 2015 when we were all in trouble together, I do applaud the zone. I think there's some zone people here, I think. I feel much more confident that we can get through a 2-3 year drought without a whole lot of trouble, given the zone's new storage paradigms and some of their operational stuff. And with respect to purified water, we just need to kind of keep working that forward because it needs to be ready when we get into the third year of the next drought, so we can actually strike like James Bond, Thunderball, and make it happen. So I know we're keeping those plans going. They're always in the background. We're always working it, and we're just going to make it happen. So keep that powder dry, and when it comes, and I think the valley is going to go for it. And one last thing, even though we kind of get wound up about we're entirely in with the zone, to me that's almost a good thing because we're all in it together. When things get crazy, Pleasanton, Livermore, Calwater, we all pull together with the zone and make it happen. If we had different supplies, maybe we had a backdoor supply, and that could get politically strange. So I'm never a big fan of single point of failure, but in this case, a single point of failure helps us because we will all work together to make it happen. No action tonight, right? This is informational. We're going to do the thing, and I've already closed the public hearing, so we're good there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I actually would like also thanks our consultants, EKI, Environment Water that help us prepare the documents too. Yeah.
Got it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, we've held the board discussion. We've given some direction, so to speak. We're going to go to 8B. Receive presentation on Zone 7 Water Agency 2026 Annual Water Sustainability Report, which seems kind of like what we just talked about. So we're going to do it again.
So, good evening, President Halkett, members of the board. I'm still Steve Delight, the Engineering Services Director, and for her second act, I would like to introduce Irene Saruso again to do a quick presentation on the annual water sustainability report.
Good evening, President Halkett and members of the board. Again, my name is Iris Rosso. I'm a senior engineer for the CIP and planning divisions. And tonight I'm going to present Zone 7 Water Agency 2026 Annual Water Sustainability Report. And you heard this report before from my previous presentations that it is used to assess the water shortage. So again, this is a similar slide that I presented before, just looking at the DSRSD source of supply that we did. Majority of our water supply is coming from Zone 7 and majority of Zone 7 supply is coming from the state water projects. Here is we'll
Can you
go
go back
over.
one slide?
Oh, yes.
Real quick. So for years, that Zone 7 slide was 80-20. Now it's 90-10. Has something changed, or have they just kind of refined their math?
I believe the last slide was also 90.
Yeah, 90 and 10%.
You mean previous years or the previous slide?
Previous years.
Oh, previous year.
It used to be 80-20. It was kind of 80% imported, 20% local. Has that changed recently, or am I hallucinating?
I think ours was 80.
I think typically we talk about Zone 7 in terms of 90-10. Sometimes we talk about 80-20 with essentially 9 or 80% on average coming from the state water project, but another 10% through transfers, which might be what you're thinking.
Okay. Or I could be going full AI and hallucinating.
But in general, 90% is pumped through the state water project.
So
I'll just add, we've had lots of discussions with Zone 7 regarding pie charts, which is why staff is smiling, because there's a number of ways to divide it up.
I sound crazy about that.
So we'll go overview this report. Some key highlights here is this year the local rainfall to date is below average, and state snow also below average, about 18% on April 1st. The snow melted earlier in March. And Zone 7 expect to receive at least 30% allocation from state water project when this report was prepared. But as of now, that allocation has been increased to 45%. So there are more allocations. And about 5,000 acre feet from the local water. Zone 7 is going to utilize 7,000 acre feet from their groundwater. And they will recharge 2,000 acre feet to the main basin. So I guess before I move it, the highlight on here is basically showing that Zone 7 supply will be able to meet DSRD demand without any shortage or any mandatory conservation. Here's just to give you an overview look of the Livermore groundwater basins. The dashed line here showing the historical low groundwater level. The blue line area is actually an operational storage, and the green area is the reserve storage in the basin. And Zone 7 does not operate below that. For the last 3 years, Zone 7 was able to recharge the basins after the last drought. And by end of 2025, the basins has reached 99%, so it's almost full. This chart shows the operations of the Kern County Storage and Recovery Program. The deposits that Zone 7 done is showing in the blue bar, and then the orange bar is when Zone 7 withdraw some of that water supply, and the green is actually the cumulative. And Zone 7, if you're looking at it, like Zone 7 were able to actually making a deposit in 2003, 4, and 2025.
Just a quick question.
Yes.
Sorry, on the Kern County storage, it's strictly under the jurisdiction of Zone 7. They don't share a partner with anyone else. Okay.
Maybe Jen can more
Water bank
clarify
has
that.
many
Yeah.
customers,
Correct.
but
Correct.
Zone 7,
This is Zone 7's
That's their
allocated portion
Allocated.
of the program,
Oh, this is
but
their
there are
allocated.
multiple participants
Okay,
That's what I
in the
thought.
Kern County program
so this is just their
portion.
portion of it.
Yeah.
Correct.
It's obviously a lot larger.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay,
it's their bank balance, basically.
got it. I got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
And this is showing 2026 portfolio. The total supply that Zone 7 anticipated. They anticipate more than 60,000 acre feet of supply. And the main source of the supply is the state water project table A and also the carryover from 2025, total with 63%. And the remaining will be made up from the Livermore groundwater basins, local water, and also a small amount from the water transfer. This number is actually slightly lower than last year, but it is a very healthy volume. Consider, the demand. And this is a report that's showing 5-year outlook of the supply looking through 2030. And these outlook projections, the assumptions was that the next 2 years will be a critical dry year from 2027 to 2028. And then the last 2 years with assumptions of average conditions. So if we're looking at the table A allocations, that's where the percentage was used in this table. So there's a lot of number here, but I would like to draw the blue row here where showing the total water supply for Zone 7, and the kind of like a red orange color where it is the demand, the customer delivery demands. So the supply is basically showing the supply will be exceeding the customer delivery demand. And then the remaining of the excess, Zone 7 is planning to store that.
So the
There.
water supply from storage line, is that local storage in our basin, or is that south of the Delta water banking storage, or both
Nine.
combined? So that might be worth thinking about at some point, because the 10% year, especially if we get impairment trying to get water through the Delta, the south of Delta storage becomes a little weird.
We don't get it.
Yeah.
If the delta is
Yeah.
too dry,
Yeah, that's only happened once.
And a
but it's
portion of
happened-
that is about 10,000 acre feet of that water supply from storage is typically what we do as carryover storage in San Luis Reservoir. So every year we put it in San Luis Reservoir and then we bring it back because you can only store it year to year. So that would be the water that would have highest priority to bring back for the state in the event of a drought where there were restrictions on pumping.
But we physically can't move it from San Luis, can we?
The state would run the minimum amount of water to do that exchange for San Luis Reservoir. So even if there was a 0% allocation, it's likely we would retrieve that
We'd run enough to
10,000
get
acre.
it. All right.
Correct.
You know me, I always worry about my paper water versus my wet water.
So basically, the conclusion is Zone 7 will be able to meet our demands, projected demands, all the way to 2030 with given conditions. So that's also conclude my presentations. Any follow-up questions, staff?
All right, went right to left last time. Let's start over here. Georgine, do you have anything?
could you go back to the pie chart?
This pie chart or
No.
the supply, Zone 7 supply?
Zone 7.
Okay.
Here you go.
Okay. I noticed you said 40%, or
Oh.
they said 40%, and yet they only are
Yeah.
counting
So
on
this
30.
40% is 40% out of this total. Is not the table A allocation. The table A allocation is still 30% in the calculations to get the number, but the 40% is on this pie charts
Okay.
comparing to the other components. Yeah.
Okay, and I'll say it again. What Mr. Halkett brought up that has worried me since we did it 1,000 years ago. We cannot use the money from, or the money, the water from the Kern County Bank when the delta's so low that they can't retrieve the water. And like Rich said, it only happened once, but that continues to concern me. It's just a comment. There's not much we can do about it. If they shut off the whatever for the delta, we won't be able to exchange for the water in Kern. So that's all. Thank you. Good report. I assume they put it all together, right?
I don't have anything. Nice job. Thank you.
Mr. Goel?
We're literally going straight down the line. Okay.
Yeah.
If you go to the next slide, and I just want to make sure that I am understanding it correctly, and also for clarity for the community for future retrieval of this video. This outlook and this projections is accounting for anticipated build out of increased demands of housing.
This is including all the projections, future demands that will occur in 2026, 2027, up to 2030.
Only in the 5-year?
Yeah, this report is a 5-year outlook. They are required to do this for, I think, as their policy to look at the 5-year outlook. But that's why the urban water management plan is looking far beyond that.
Okay. So between the two combined, as a planning process, we take in the housing demand increase and growth. We bury that into the per capita demand and needs, and the total storage that is remaining is accounted for.
Correct.
And then the other piece is in our conservative projection of a 2-year or 3-year drought with a 2-year average, it also takes that into account.
Correct.
Okay, and the reason why I'm asking this is about a few years ago when it came to, I believe even at City Council, there was questions about whether the plan development had the necessary water capacity. And those topics will arise again as we go into a drought. People start to consider water supply, right? And we're already talking about water reduction requirements, drought requirements. Those are going to surface. So I just want to make sure that we keep on calling it out on these projections, that we're doing everything not only by the law, but also by being fully transparent to the community and ensuring that we have the necessary water supply to guarantee for those build outs that we're being required to deliver at by the state. Thank you. Great presentation.
Well done.
Excellent presentation, but the two presentations just point out back to my first comment about supply and the importance of increase in the storage in the state. Doug, we can't, in our outreach to our customer base, we can't put language in our flyers that says to the effect, simplistically, you need to express your support for the Sites Reservoir, for example. Or can we? Or can we couch that language so that we can?
Well, I'll put it in terms of what you are allowed to do during an election to advocate. You can't. So you can't directly advocate for candidates or for ballot measures. You can provide educational information. So what you're describing to me, change that from more of a directive to encouraging people to learn about it and then take a position. You could definitely do that. So there's some nuance in there. So I'm not going to tell you no, you can't do. You may not be able to do precisely what you just said, but you can certainly encourage people to become knowledgeable and explain what the project does and its benefits to Zone 7 and to DSRSD.
And Director Duarte, if I could add, a few years ago, the DSRSD board updated our water resiliency policy, which includes statements that advocates for additional projects, including both local projects, local storage and conveyance, and also external projects like sites as well.
Yeah, the reason for my comment is that, I mean, we all know that too many people don't read all of the facts and get themselves completely educated. I was just a couple of months ago, I saw another article come out about the Sites Reservoir. The opposing groups are filing lawsuits. And given all the data that's been out there, all of the results, all of the actions that all of the districts have taken, it's mind-boggling that they can find a reason to fault that reservoir. And it's already, how many years, Georgine?
Oh, God, at least
10 years, 15 years in the making.
Yeah.
And it's not going to get built for another 7 years. It's just astounding to me how we can allow ourselves to get to this position. This is going to happen. This is absolutely going to happen.
Yep. Well said.
Educating the public has always been an interesting challenge.
No, you just gotta wait for the next drought and strike hard. They were pretty confident, as confident as water people ever are, which is not very confident, at the last Aqua that I think sites might finally get over the hump. It's off stream. It's been figured out. It's financed. I think they can get that one done. The other interesting project that I was kind of tracking is the Sacramento Valley's doing a large groundwater banking project. And supposedly they have 30,000 acre feet they might be able to export or, use. And that's north of the Delta, which obviously is a very desirable thing for us. I've not talked to the zone about it, but, that's there. I don't believe we have any action on this item tonight. It's just chit-chat.
Also, no action tonight.
I love these no actions. That's good. It saves some ink. All right. If I've heard everything that everybody wants to say about 8B, I'm going to move on to 8C. Is that good? That's good. All right. Thank you. Oh, you're still up. Oh, no, you're going to leave. Approve contract for municipal and industrial water supply with Zone 7 Water Agency. Be still my heart.
Good evening, President Halkett, members of the board. I am rounding out the trio of water-related items this evening, and this one does have an action. Staff is asking the board to consider approval of a new water supply contract with Zone 7 Water Agency. So I'm going to briefly provide an overview of the contract and some of the key terms. So as we talked about this evening, Zone 7 provides treated water to 4 retailers within the service area. That includes Cal Water, who provides service to the southern portion of Livermore, the cities of Livermore and Pleasanton, and then DSRSD. Each of these 4 retailers has a contract with Zone 7 that outlines terms for treated water service. So the first water contracts were signed in the 1960s. They were 30-year terms. They were renewed in the 1990s with the exception of Pleasanton, who opted to not renew its contract. However, Zone 7 and Pleasanton have terms and conditions under which they provide service, and they're largely the same as those other 3 retail contracts. There's been minimal changes to any of these contracts since the original 1960s contracts. The one exception is that DSRSD's contract was amended in 2000 to allow DSRSD to provide water service to Doherty Valley, which is outside the Alameda County line. So in November of 2023, Zone 7 initiated a process to renew the contracts. Because all of the retailer contracts were expiring in roughly the same time frame, Zone 7 saw an opportunity to initiate the discussions with all the retailers and develop standard contracts. So this process took roughly about 2.5 years. During this process, DSRSD's contract did expire in August of 2024, but the current contract includes language that provides for an automatic 2-year renewal. So that allowed us to complete these discussions. So we've developed final contracts early of May this year, and Zone 7's board authorized execution of all 4 contracts with the retailers at their last board meeting in May. So the new water supply contract, it's largely the same as the prior contracts. The standard provisions are sections 1 through 50. Those are common provisions or common to all of the retailers. DSRSD has 2 specific provisions that I'll talk a little bit about later. One is related to Zone 7 agreeing to pump our groundwater pumping quota on our behalf, and the other is related to Doherty Valley. So just briefly running through some of the key terms, it is a 30-year contract or slightly longer than 30 years. It expires December 31st, 2055. There was a new term added related to communication, and it states Zone 7's obligation to inform retailers of updates to policies and procedures and to solicit input from the retailers as appropriate. Similar to the prior contracts, it does state that Zone 7 is the exclusive water supplier with certain exceptions, and these exceptions are listed under a section called alternate supply. So under these circumstances, a retailer could go out and secure a non-Zone 7 supply. One is the groundwater pumping quota. We're allowed to pump our groundwater from the main basin. If we needed to secure supply for firefighting, public health and safety, or other emergency purposes, in the event that Zone 7 wasn't able to meet state and federal drinking water standards, we could secure another supply. As Irene Soroso talked about earlier, there could be times where Zone 7 has to declare a water shortage. Under these circumstances, a retailer would be able to go and secure additional supply. We are allowed to distribute any recycled water that we produce, and we also have the ability to extract groundwater from the fringe basin as long as there's no impacts to the main groundwater basin.
Bullet 4. No, go back. Bullet 4, what does it actually mean?
It means,
I mean,
similar to what Irene said,
we've had issues in the past trying to figure out when they can't actually meet our demand. How's it measured? When's it measured?
So the state requires that each agency submit a water assessment and water shortage report. So that's a new requirement in 2022. So under that, Zone 7 would declare its water shortage, and we would be able to go and secure additional supplies. In addition to these exceptions, a retailer can also go and secure additional supply. But if Zone 7 had that available, we would first need prior written permission from Zone 7, and we would have to pay the fixed cost for any water we forego or we decide not to purchase from Zone 7. So this is the list of exceptions where we can go out on our own and secure water. And then if Zone 7 had supply available, we could also look for additional supply, but we would need their prior written approval.
Okay.
In terms of water quality, the contract requires Zone 7 to provide treated water that meets all state and federal drinking water standards. We did add language, the retailers, that states that Zone 7 endeavors to provide treated water in accordance with its water quality policy. And this statement was important for DSRSD because Zone 7's water quality policy also includes goals for aesthetic drinking water standards such as hardness, which is important to our customers. Again, Irene talked a little bit about water availability. The availability of water is subject to factors such as drought and facility outages. In the event of a shortage, deliveries would be reduced proportionally between retailers. DSRSD did push, and what is included in the contract is some language that provides flexibility for Zone 7 to apportion that cutback differently to meet public health and safety standards and meet state and federal regulatory requirements such as emergency drought regulations. And the reason that we pushed for this flexibility is that acknowledgement that the board talked about earlier, that demand hardening is occurring. DSRSD has a significant portion of its outdoor irrigation on recycled water, so we have less ability to cut back during droughts before getting deeper into those measures that impact our customers. So, you know, we're looking ahead and for opportunities to push the state to make sure there's not a one-size-fits-all type of cutback or in emergency regulations. You know, the governor saying everyone needs to go to stage 2. There have been times where the state has adopted emergency drought regulations that looks at sort of individual supply and demand, and this provision would allow Zone 7 to apportion based on some of those unique factors. So the two DSRSD specific provisions I mentioned, one is the groundwater pumping quota. Term 51 requires Zone 7 to pump and deliver our groundwater pumping quota, which is that 645 acre feet from the main basin, as long as the 2012 easement agreement remains in effect. And the board may recall that the easement agreement is the agreement under which DSRSD provided the land for Zone 7 to construct Mocho Well number 4 and the Mocho groundwater demineralization facility. So as long as Zone 7 is using that land, they will have an obligation to continue to pump our groundwater pumping quota. And then Term 52, both DSRSD and Zone 7 staff worked to greatly simplify the provisions in that 2000 amendment. So Term 52 includes terms and conditions under which DSRSD can continue to serve Doherty Valley. So this evening, staff is asking the board to consider approving the contract for water supply with Zone 7 Water Agency, and if the board approves the contract, we would then request that the board president execute the new 30-year contract with Zone 7. And we are available to answer any questions.
Thank you. I think I started this side.
The other agencies have not signed. Pleasanton has this, my understanding is Pleasanton has this scheduled for their second council meeting in June. I think that's June 16th. Livermore is scheduled to go in early July, and Cal Water, being investor owned, has a different approval process.
So thank you for this report. Always what's more important to the customers are the two things that they feel the most. And the biggest topics are what you talked about was in their water quality policy. Under aesthetics, it's hardness, and the other one is smell. Can you speak a little bit to what does that actually mean? I mean, beyond we strive to do they have any parameters or like targets?
They do have listed parameters.
Okay.
The hardness is, my recollection is it's about 200, which is still hard, but not very hard. And then there are some taste and odor parameters as well. The retailers do have the opportunity to provide input and comment on the water quality policy, which that additional provision or that linkage to the water quality policy combined with the additional communication provision is our opportunity to weigh in on those matters.
And how often do we get opportunities?
They maybe I can look at Dan a little bit. They bring the water quality policy, every couple years?
Yes, that's correct.
And do we time our communications in such a way that we're getting feedback and we're able to provide it to Zone 7?
We are. They have been much more proactive reaching out to us to meet with us on those policies.
And not to pester it, but during drought, both of those two parameters spike. So does the water quality policy address that as being the average, the norm, or during extreme years?
I would say it's mostly normal years. However, because Zone 7 is going to be running the groundwater, the Mocho groundwater demineralization facility more consistently because of PFAS concerns, we would expect to see lower hardness during droughts. In the past, they've shut that facility off to maximize water supply because there is water loss through the membranes. But again, now because of PFAS, they plan to operate that facility annually.
So operations may also feed towards the benefit on the water quality side.
Correct. And
Due to regulations indirectly.
yeah, and then one additional, they are looking to develop a basin water quality master plan, which will also look to manage the water quality of the groundwater basin and address salt loading, which contributes to hardness.
Okay. I do appreciate that. Thank you.
Here we go. Just a couple of things. So when we're talking about alternative water supplies, my mic's not on, but so I just want to see what that comparison looks like, or do we know what that is? You kind of get my question there.
I do get your question. Since the 1960s, in order to bring the State Water Project in, Zone 7 needed some certainty in terms of being able to sell water. So we've had that exclusive water supplier provision in our contract. So I would say that DSRSD hasn't really looked at what the cost of water would be to secure it from additional agencies.
So that would be something. So a couple concerns that I have, and I think what President Halkett had pointed to earlier on that alternate supply, especially that bullet point 4, and that is, for me, that's a little bit problematic, that specific bullet, because I think when we look at as trying to do what's best for the customers and representing, our constituents, what I have concerns with is that the language in there seems to be like a 30-year contract. So it seems to be very one-sided from that perspective. And without us having some more leeway in there, the exclusivity just really gives me heartburn. I mean, I know we've done that for 30 years, but is that really the right thing to do? And so I would have concern approving this given we're going down that path with exclusivity without really a lot of leeway if we need to get into buying, because it seems like there's a lot of bureaucracy that we would have to go through to get alternative supplies. And I think we need to figure out how to make that somewhat easier for DSRSD. So that's my concern on how it's written. And I would have trouble approving that because of that language. Or were you going to say something?
I was looking to Doug, our general counsel, to see if he wanted to address this.
Well, I was looking to you for that. The only comment I think I would be able to make is that exclusivity is generally a condition of water service because Zone 7 owns all the infrastructure that DSRSD requires to bring water into your service area. The only other way that you can receive water is through your interties with East Bay Mud. Those are very limited. And so all of the infrastructure is designed around receiving that water from Zone 7. There are other opportunities, if there wasn't available supplies from Zone 7 and you're able to bring in the additional supplies, they're costly because during drought, water, the per acre foot cost of exchanges goes up very dramatically. The only benefit to those circumstances is Zone 7 may have capacity in their system. In the circumstances that Director Von Heeter-Leopold and President Halkett are concerned about, where the Delta pumps are effectively shut off or operating at their very, very base minimum, then you have even fewer opportunities to move water into the Tri-Valley because Zone 7's facilities will be also so limited. So I understand that, that concern. It is just it's a nature of how water has been brought into the valley for I think Georgine said 70 years.
70, yeah.
70 years that leads you to that point. It's just that's how the infrastructure is designed.
Oh, I think something that may help you in your evaluation, Director Govinda Rao, is Cal Water doesn't have the same type of scenarios that we do, and they too are procuring it from Zone 7.
The reality is if you think about the geography, there's no place else to get it from. We're already got the intertie with East Bay Mud. Obviously, all the infrastructure that goes into bringing it from Zone 7. But if we were to get it from someplace else, there's no place else to get it from.
And I would add
mean,
that
I agree with-
it's two things. It's the infrastructure. The ability to wheel through East Bay Mud system is fairly limited to non-existent. The other one is water rights. The type of water we would get has a place of use. So, for example, East Bay Mud's water has a place of use. They can't serve outside that place of use. So for Zone 7, the State Water Project, we are within that place of use. So kind of goes back a little bit to what Doug was saying is in terms of water service, the state law is trying to prevent like duplication of water service within a certain area.
But I guess, I understand all your points there. I think my concern is the language on how strong it is, given if it's truly where we're stuck and we're sort of cornered into this thing. I mean, I would think then they already have that. There's no reason for the language to be that strong to begin with. So I think, so you can kind of look at it from that perspective as well. And so what like I said, what gives me the heartburn is just having the language as strong and that we're not trying to maybe renegotiate some of that language to loosen it up a little bit. And that's where my focus is on. And this is a 30-year contract. So it's not like something we're just doing this for 3 years or 5 years or whatever it is. So that, again, that's where I have trouble with that part of it.
Got it?
Well, the reality is also when Zone 7 probably, there's so much time that has passed, but I would say 15 years ago, they were not interested in looking for additional supply. We nudged and nudged and nudged and finally proclaimed that we were going to go look for it. And that's how we ended up with the water through Berinda Mesa, Kern County. But it still had to go through all the procedures to get it wheeled through Zone 7. But we did do it. They never threatened anything. Well, maybe they did behind closed doors, but they never threatened to enforce that part of the contract, probably because they weren't looking for additional alternatives, and we were in a serious drought. So even though the wording is strong, we've worked around it once and managed to get water. So maybe it's not as strong as you feel it is. Who knows? A court would have to decide that anyway.
Yep.
President, if I got one more thing, I'm going to look to the general manager for confirmation of this, but the contract term wouldn't preclude the district from pursuing its local options like potable reuse, were you to be able to find a way to either store in the shoulder seasons or in the winter, or use direct potable reuse.
Sure.
So that is entirely likely your strongest option in terms of additional drinking water supplies.
Right.
That is correct. And just maybe one more point I'd want to add is we've talked a lot this evening about Zone 7 looking for additional supply sources in terms of sites, reservoir, chain of lakes. These are very expensive projects. And part of what Zone 7 is looking for is some certainty in terms of revenue to be able to fund those projects. So the language is strong, but part of it also is that certainty to provide funding for those additional projects that the DSRSD board has been advocating for.
Yeah. No, I hear you on that. And just something else that came across, just another thought was what Director Goyle had mentioned earlier when he asked about hardness and smell, because that is one of the things I hear about constantly. And also that's something I think, but we're not really pushing them in the contract, in any type of contractual language to maybe, I know they have their demineralization, they're working on that stuff, but without really setting something more in stone with them, we're going to continue to hear those complaints. I mean, us as representing our constituents, I mean, I hear that a lot. Why is the hardness, why is this, not as good as, let's say, East Bay mud, because we represent San Ramon, and then the other side of San Ramon is represented by East Bay mud. So I hear that constantly from folks, and that's something, again, I would like to see stronger language, hopefully directing them to try to move in that direction. But that's just another thought that came across that Director Gohl had mentioned. I forgot to mention earlier. So those are some concerns from the contract that without us putting in there, I would really have trouble approving it from my perspective.
So I just want to make sure you understand why I'm after that statement. The difference is about how we store and how we get our water. And when it's a drought, it's an inevitable impact on that water supply. East Bay mud, and correct me if I'm wrong, has no underwater storage coming in, and it's all surface, and it's also a strong fresh water from a further location. So I think, yeah,
Piped 90 miles direct.
kind of where I'm going at, right? The infrastructure is very different. So I think those are different parameters. Yeah, it's unfortunate for your individuals in Doherty Valley. However, they too would not be getting water, and they would not be in existence if the water supply was not committed from DSRSD and those provisions were not allowed. So, but I mean, that's still an important variable that as they look to their adjacent neighbors across the way, there was an element that they may not have been able to have that water supply come to them.
No, I totally understand. Thank you for sharing that, Director Goyle. And I think, going back to, definitely during droughts, I totally understand that the water is going to be harder. But I guess my question is that, impressing on them to do some type of demineralization and maybe putting more emphasis on that we're not putting really in the contract. And I think that's something that I would like to, see from our end, pushing them to be able to do that. I understand this, from a drought situation, what happens, but there's other things we can put in place to kind of mitigate that situation. And
so I'm going to make my last statement. And the terms of these contracts didn't happen overnight. The terms of these contracts and its requirement for us to execute a contract didn't happen just yesterday. So staff at multiple levels have heard the request from this board as a direction, and we focused in at varying times to provide input in the appropriate direction to get to the best available arrangement. So again, it didn't happen overnight. This was something probably reached at by in collaboration with multiple water utility providers. And this also goes to that fact of what Director Halkett said, we as a region are working together. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay. I guess I get to go last because I'm president. So, couple things. Been doing this for 22 some odd years now. Our water comes from where our water comes from, which is the southernmost part of the Delta. It's not magic Feather River water that comes down all pristine. We get our water from the Delta because we got our water last. East Bay Mud, SFPUC, they got their water in the 20s, the 30s.
Yep.
I'm not going to use the word stole, but I will. So, Bob Maddow many years ago told me the quality of your water is directly proportional to when you stole it. So if you take it from Hetch Hetchy or you take it from way up where East Bay Mud, you get there's McQuality, you pipe it directly to your base, bypass the delta entirely. They already have their delta bypass.
Yeah.
They have their water fix already. They've had it for 50, 60, some, many years. So the water quality that we have is what we have. Personally, I'm glad we have water. That's gating to me. The fact that we have water, the people in Doherty Valley have water. I want it to be legal. I want it to be clean. I don't want to invest a huge amount of community resources to put a giant water softener on the entire system to turn it into nice, not hard water. I think it's a waste of resources. We have other things to deal with. Exclusivity has always bothered me. But it's kind of the reality of how the plumbing works. There's only one way to get water in Aurora Valley, and that's through Harvey Banks and South Bank, South Aqueduct, and a bunch of Zone 7, infrastructure. We tried years ago to get 2,500 acre feet in through East Bay Mud. It was we're recording. It was a poop storm. It was very difficult, and it didn't work. And it would have been expensive, and 2,500 acre feet is not going to change anything. The fact that we still have the flexibility in this contract to recycle is what's key to me, because that's the one thing that we can actually kind of semi-control ourselves. We can't control it entirely because we have no place to put the water. But the zone is looking for water, and someday Channel Lakes, who knows, we get the things lined up, we might be able to pull that off. Again, realistically, even if the things went really south, there's no physical way to get enough water into our service area through the plumbing that's around us with all of our partners to matter. So we're kind of all in it together. Now, is Pleasant is going to sign, right? So we're all going to have the same contract. We have a couple of clauses because we have Doherty Valley. My friends, I love Doherty Valley, but so we have a special thing with them. Jan was ready for me to go all crazy and start banging the gavel and causing trouble, but no, I'm going to support this. I wish there was a clause in there saying DSRSD can do whatever the heck it wants to do with water, but that's just not going to happen, given the reality of the way water, the physical infrastructure, the politics, and the water rights work in California. So I'm going to support this. If we've kind of flogged this thing enough, I mean, we can do another round of comments, or I'll call the ball. Ready for me to call the ball? Jan, anything else? All right, I need a motion.
I'll go ahead and put a motion forward to support staff's recommendation by resolution to approve the contract for municipal and industrial water supply with Zone 7 Water Agency.
All right. Can I get somebody to just second that emotion?
I'll second it.
I get a second on the first. 30-year contracts. You don't do these very often. All right. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
That's good. Awesome. I have a 4-1.
I think that's a first.
Well, no. I like 4-1s. Too many 5-0s is bad for governance.
I know.
I know. It's perfect. All right. All right. I think we can dispense with 8C now. Motion approved. Blah, 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 blah. There we go. All right. Now we're going to move on to item 9, reports. Board member items. I have a JPA report from LAVMA. I was there. Who else was there? You want to go first?
I can always go first.
You go first. You're loquacious. I mean, you'll talk. I mean, you'll take care of all the business for me.
Well, the reason why Director Halkett's not going first is he's now the vice chair. And Director Dunbar is the chair. Went through the normal rotation. We did do a budget adjustment of about $341,000 for EPDA special projects. and adopted the 26-27 operating capital and repair and replacement budget. It's about $12.7 million. We also reaffirmed the investment policy, which was something that was worked on. There was a desire to keep the solar project alive, and so beyond that.
Yeah, I was going to expand on that. So there were some sad pandas about the solar project dying. I got on my high horse and tried my best to talk everybody down. I think I succeeded. I mean, you were there. I mean, so basically, I explained to them it didn't work out. That's very typical for solar, that a PPA may not even be the right structure for a future agreement. Gently just said, staff put time into this, it didn't work, and staff needs to be able to kind of recoup their energy. Give us 6 months or a year and we'll give it a go. But just kind of give us some space. And I got some nods. Julie wasn't happy about it, but I think we're okay. Is that a fair read?
That's a fair read because you also played the fact that she won't be there the next time it comes back.
Oh, that's true. She's off. I didn't play that fact. That just kind of happened.
Is she
All right.
termed out?
She is.
Yeah. All right, that's LAVBA. Any other written reports for days of service?
Can I go? I attended the CASA board meeting last week via Zoom, of course, and we only had 3 items on the agenda of any import, and it all had to do with the board slate that's being recommended and the officers. The board members that are going to be presented in August for election are Melissa Thorne, Scott Goldman, Jackie Zepkin, and Rob Grentham from Santa Margarita Water District. That fills in, excuse me, the need that is not written down in policy, but there's 3 directors north and 3 directors south and 3 managers north and 3 managers south. And we've stayed with that somehow through all the years. So those are the 4 that will be on the slate, open for election in August. The next thing is we talked about officers, and as is protocol for CASA, everybody moved up 1, and they recommended, and we did pass it, that Sandeep Karkal from Marin somewhere, Water District would step in as Secretary Treasurer. Then, of course, the president becomes Rita from Orloma. The vice president is, that's a good question here. I'm sorry. Scott Goldman, who steps up from Treasurer, and vice president, who steps up as from Treasurer. And then the last thing we did was to acknowledge that we interviewed a new law firm for CASA. It's the firm of Folsom Jackson. Have you ever heard of them? But our attorneys on the board interviewed them and were very taken with them. So we agreed, and that's going to be our new counsel. And that was all. Oh, excuse me, one more thing. Annual conference, we already have 200 registered. We need 300 to kind of break even. So if you're not registered, please register. They're adding rooms bit by bit. So if you register, Cheryl will try and get additional rooms.
Got it.
That's it.
Thank you very much. Ed? Arun? It's not quite a day of service. I did attend the closing night for the Citizens Water Academy earlier this week. I guess it was last week. It's a long week. Well attended. Lots of questions. they quizzed staff very vigorously. Good group. I think we may get some board people who want to think about it there. I mean, you know, we had good coverage across the district. I give a few minutes on how it is to be on the board, and I don't think I scared them off too bad. So, you know, hopefully we're okay there. Good event, and I do really appreciate staff pulling that together. I know that's kind of a duties as assigned kind of thing, but it's important to get people on, not on our side because we don't have sides, but you know, now we have 30 or 40 people in the community who, when they get a Prop 218 notice or some other thing from us, will know what it means. And they can talk to their neighbors and off we go. Also, I want to thank Director Von here, Leopold, for taking my spot tomorrow at Zone 7. My younger son's graduate from high school tomorrow, and I should probably attend that and not get in trouble for my wife. And it does kind of point to the fact that if you use paper calendars, you got to turn the page periodically to look at the first week of the following week. So I got in flop sweats, you know, we're on Friday or Saturday, I turned the calendar and I was like, oh
dear.
Oh darn. I double booked that. Plus get my dad down from Oregon for it and everything. So thank you, Georgine. Say hi to our friends from the zone. They're going to have a whole new board tonight, pretty much, or at least half a new board. So that should be fun too.
Yeah.
All right. That's all I have. Staff, any new agenda items?
Yes, I'd like to make, if there's an interest. We've talked a little bit about storage investments, so I think it might be an opportunity to get an update. It can just be brief in nature on sites, Chain of Lakes, and let's go ahead and toss in Delta Conveyance as well. There's a lot of movement happening, a lot of conversations happening.
Yeah.
And those of you
Gonna
that haven't,
change.
but those that haven't been able to attend some of the conferences, and I think it's also just good to get it on audio and presentation.
And the last Aqua, they did have quite a bit of movement, so that's probably good.
Yeah.
And I assume Aqua has something that you guys can borrow and just use.
I would suspect somewhere after the major milestone is achieved.
Yeah. Thank you. Anything else there? Anything else? All right, good. All right, let's go to 9B, staff reports.
Just a few updates. President Halkett already mentioned the DSRSD Zone 7 liaison meeting tomorrow, and two of the topics, one is Chain of Lakes, and one is a purified water project update. So given the board's interest, we'll fold those in and bring them back at a future date to this entire board. Reminder, Monday, June 8th is our special board meeting at the wastewater treatment plant. So please do not come here. Please do go directly to the wastewater treatment plant. And then just wanted to remind the board too that all of you should have received an invitation to the June 13th 80th celebration bash that Central San is hosting. So if you're interested, I think they're going to have a lot of fun activities.
Awesome.
Same time, different place.
Is June 8th or June 15th?
June 8th.
So this coming Monday.
This coming Monday.
Got it. Okay.
All right. No closed session, so I think, if I'm reading this right, I can bang the gavel and get us out of here. All right. 7:34.